In the 80s, we were shooting, everybody was shooting film, of course, and whether it's black and white neg or color transparency, color neg, most of us doing repro publishing type work, shooting color transparency, really, really unforgiving material, wasn't it? So it was really, really important to get it right in camera.
Yeah. People used to say that the exposure latitude was a third of a stop of something like Fujichrome Velvia. I question that. I think you had to get it bang on, and that was that, really. To
get your best colors and so on.
Yeah.
And you had a kind of typical working range of about 4 to 5 stops for Velvia, maybe a bit more for Provia or the less contrasty films, but it was brutal, wasn't it? And so filters, especially if you're shooting landscapes with a brightish sky, and especially in the northern hemisphere with northern latitudes, it's dark, the landscape's dark, it's often damp. It's a big exposure gap to bridge, so grads were essential.
Exactly.
And they still are essential.
Yeah, I find, I'm sure you're the same, I find I'm still using them, but in a very different way, really. I'm trying to use the grad as a contrast control device to hold on typically to the detail in the sky. And then I can then subsequently fine-tune just that relationship between the sky and the landscape in post-production. But if I need to use the grad to keep that, make sure I'm recording that precious highlight shadow information.
I think too, when you get the feedback on the back of the camera, if you've used a grad, the picture will usually look pretty good.
Yeah.
And that, I find that really helpful. If you're shooting a bright exposure for the shadows, a dark exposure, and then trying to blend them subsequently, which is possible, as we know.
Sure.
It's a right carry-on, isn't it?
It is.
It becomes very technical, and there's more post-production, and also the picture doesn't look that great on the back of the camera. So you're not actually seeing what you're seeing at the time, because the camera doesn't see the same way as the human eye anyway.
And there's something fundamentally satisfying about creating
that
one-off image that is that one moment in time, that is not quite the end product, but pretty much.
Close to it. I find on the method side that I don't necessarily have to use quite as much grad as I might have in the past.
Same.
And I tend to use more softer medium grads than I did in the past.
Yeah.
Although I have to say that's partly because when I shot large format film, the film format's so big and the lens is often very big front elements.
Yeah.
The grad line's very, very out of focus too.
Yeah.
So you often found that it softened the grad line so much. It was a hard grad was effectively a soft grad.
Yeah, my most used filter was a 0.9 ND grad hard, and now I would say it's probably a 0.6 ND, maybe medium, maybe soft.
I use the mediums a lot. And I think because I live a bit further north than you, I'm probably not quite in so many exotic locales, so I'm often shooting a slightly darker landscape, so often the contrast range is that bit bigger. So I still use 0.9s a little bit more than 0.6.
Yeah. But coming back to actually that fundamental, trying to get it right, trying to get it done in one exposure, that I think it's such a good discipline, and I think we had the benefit of all those years shooting film that does translate through into, if you can translate that discipline that we brought to bear of shooting film to working with digitally and enhance all the flexibility that the new media brings us, then we're getting the best of both worlds, wouldn't you say?
I totally do agree with that, and it almost makes you think maybe youngsters should all be made to suffer.
Oh, now we're sounding like a right bunch of old fogies here,
but actually, I think the quality of light is something that really, really is so fundamental, and you had to learn that from shooting film, and I still feel that.
Well, you've once used a term, I remember reading it in some magazine article, that every picture has to have that connection, that umbilical cord of connection with reality, which I thought was a brilliant quote, and I actually mention it often, and I think that's, for me, it's so true, because I need to look at a picture that I've made myself and know that it is a genuine record of that experience of being there. It's not the product of hours in the digital darkroom. It really is down to that click of the shutter, that capture of the decisive moment.
I'll drink to that.
Yeah.